Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we're taking a look at this beast of a knife. This is the CRKT M16-04S Classic. This is actually the first CRKT M16 I've ever had in my possession. This is a very popular knife, but I've never had one until now. And this was sent to the channel by Old Tonto Guy. So thank you so much to him. It's because of viewers like him that I get to take a look at a lot of really cool knives. And this one is definitely a really cool knife. So let's go ahead and get this review started off with our blade length measurement. Sharpened edge here, a little bit hard to measure because it's a Tonto, but honestly, taking into consideration a secondary edge, you probably have over, well, let's get this on screen. You probably have over 4 inches of sharpened blade. I mean, if we're measuring down here to the sharpening choil, the plunge grind, if we're measuring here to the plunge grind, that's 3.8 inches. And of course, you're going to get a little bit more on here because it's a Tonto. If we measure, I mean, gosh, that is basically the whole blade length if we come down to the closest spot on the scale. But yeah, 3.9-ish, 4 inches of blade. It's a big knife. That's the takeaway. It's a big knife. So definitely prepare yourself for that if you're going to carry it. Let's go ahead and do our size comparisons. Keep this quick. There's the Rat 2, and here's the Rat 1. Yeah, the Rat 1's not a small knife, and the M16 here is giving it a run for its money. Let's go ahead and bring out our USA made comparisons. Here's our Spyderco PM2, and here's our Benchmade bug out. So again, it's a very large knife. I will say in a lot of ways it feels kind of similar in hand to the PM2. Like not exactly, but a little bit. I think it's because they're very similar in thickness. The M16 is a little bit thicker, but they're kind of similar. And let's compare against our Civivis. Here's our Elementum, and here's our Praxis, and once again, the M16 is the biggest knife on the table. I want to compare it real quick against the Off-Grid Knives Viper V2. This one was also sent in by Old Tonto Guy, and they're both Tonto, so kind of seems fitting. And let's compare against another massive folding knife. Here's the Cold Steel 8010 Light. The M16 is still definitely longer, but the 8010 is definitely girthier. So what are our materials on this knife? Well, we have a Tonto blade of Aus 8 steel. I know. Aluminum scales. We do have steel liners, and according to CRKT and a bunch of websites I found, these are J2 steel liners. That's a great steel for a liner. Or maybe it was 420J. I think it's 420J. Anyways, I don't normally specify that, but since they specified it, I thought, there we go. And it also has CRKT's specialized secondary lock here. What do they call that? The oh gosh. It's the LOX system. I had to look that up, and it's LOX spelled LAWKS, and that stands for Lake and Walker Knife Safety. So there you go. It was invented by I think the Walker in that is Michael Walker, the same guy that invented the liner lock, but I'll have to double check that. Ouch. So yeah, it has that secondary locking system right there. It is a liner lock. We're running on Teflon washers, and it's a flipper. Let's go ahead and go do some cutting. Alrighty guys, you ready to do some review cutting? We're out here at the CRKT M16-04S Classic. When you give your knife a name that's as much of a mouthful as that is, I always appreciate it when they write it on the blade so that I can read it on camera and act like I knew what the thing was called the whole time. And now that I've told you guys that, the jig is up. You know that I didn't have it memorized. I just had to read it, and it made this last couple of seconds of video footage pointless. All right. So this is a really cool knife, a big tactical folder. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's start off with the action. So this is running on Teflon washers, but the flipper is actually really, really good. The closing action is very smooth, and the blade does drop pretty well because it's so big. Great action. I love the way the flipper tab is shaped. It's rounded. It's jimped really well. Very, very nice. You got the little secondary lock here thing, and sometimes I was afraid that would kind of get in my way when I was flipping it, but it really doesn't, so that's kind of cool. Oh, except right there, I accidentally engaged it when I flipped the knife. Or maybe that's not an accident. Maybe that's a feature. It also has thumb studs here that are external blade stops. They've got kind of this aggressive texturing on them too. Thumb flick works extremely well. Now, because only one side of this knife has a liner, this side of the blade, this side of the knife is a little bit thicker than this side. So you can see this thumb stud sticks out above the scales, but this one does not. In fact, it's sunk in. And I have reverse flicked it a couple of times. But it is not easy to do. Yeah, we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it. So, no reverse flicking. Sorry, guys. But yeah, the action is very, very nice, especially for a knife running on Teflon washers. So the ergonomics. Big, chunky knife, fairly neutral handle. The ergos are actually pretty nice. You do have an area here that you can choke up into. You've got plenty of room on this knife. I mean, big hands are going to be just fine. This knife might even be a little bit too big for my medium-sized hands. But really, really comfortable grip. It is slippery, it is aluminum, but honestly, the jimping up here on the blade can kind of lock you in, and these holes in the scale actually do a good job at helping you index the knife and lock it in as well. So overall, the ergonomics are pretty good. Okay, let's talk about the carry. I hate this pocket clip. I absolutely hate this pocket clip. With jeans, this clip did not work at all. It's very tight. There's not enough ramp. I'm not wearing jeans today, and it's still not the greatest. I mean, look, it's not even in there all the way. There we go, another shove. I think the holes in the scale don't help. Comes out of these pants a lot easier than it comes out of the jeans. But yeah, sticking it in there is not the easiest. However, the clip is four-way mountable. You can mount it tip down or tip up, left or right, so that's cool. I really don't like the clip at all. It's not very good. All right, let's cut some stuff. So this blade is AUS 8. Or is this AUS 8 or 4116? I can't remember. I wish CRKT would mark their blade steels. I will know when we do the review. Like I've probably already said it at the table, but anyways, Tonto blade, and this is not a compound ground Tonto. It's flat all the way through. Fairly thin tip. Let's go ahead and get some work done. Throw that over there. Go ahead and do some utility cuts. Let's do it with that Tonto edge first. So yeah, this is one of those knives that is not a slicer, but it will cut. And actually, I said this was a flat grind. I think this is actually a hollow grind, but it's not a very deep one. It's pretty shallow. Yeah, this is definitely more of a cutter than a slicer, which for a tactical knife, honestly, might be the preferred way to do. Threw away the wrong piece. The preferred way to do things. That actually felt really good going through the rope. Let's go ahead and do some of this. 1,
2, 3. Yeah, did all right. Did all right. Actually, not quite as good as I was thinking it would do, but it did decent. Let's actually try getting it back here. Yeah, it is quite a bit thinner up towards the tip. It does thin out quite a bit, so interesting. All right, let's grab our pool noodle, see what we can do here. All right, so yeah, I could definitely tell I was wielding a knife that's a little more robust. Here's our first cut, pretty clean, but yeah, pretty thick. Tried to go quite a bit thinner on the other two. This one actually came out pretty well. You can see here we did have a couple of instances where instead of slicing, we were just kind of mushing the pool noodle. And this one, I tried to go even thinner still, and yeah, we got a little bit wavy here. Just couldn't quite go that thin. Had to thicken up a little bit. But all in all, not a bad performer. This is definitely not a super slicer, but it's not so robust that it's obnoxious. This is a pretty average blade, I would say. Take a closer look at that knife there. Let's go ahead and get back to the table.
Alrighty, what am I liking and not liking about this beast of a tactical folder? Well, number one, I think it looks good. This is a good looking knife. This is a very sleek, but kind of aggressive looking knife. It reminds me a lot of an airplane, like especially a World War II era fighter plane. I can't pinpoint exactly why, but just kind of lines of it. It gives me that vibe, and I think that's cool. I think that's pretty cool. I guess maybe the aluminum helps, right? Feels very airplane-y. Next thing, the M16 is kind of a legendary knife, right? This was a Kit Carson design, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it might have been one of the first knives to have a flipper deployment. Regardless, it's definitely cemented itself as kind of the CRKT knife. These are really cool, and there are dozens and dozens of versions of the M16. There are all kinds of variants that you can get, which is really awesome, right? This is, in my opinion, one of the better looking ones, but you can get them big, small, drop point blades, serrated, the Tonto. There's all kinds of versions, and I think that's really cool. Next thing I like about this knife, the ergonomics. So it is smooth aluminum, but actually these holes here help you to index it quite a bit. It does feel good in the hand. It's pretty neutral. You have this area here you can choke up into and get high on that blade if you're doing some, choked up, maybe whittling tasks. Overall, it feels really good in hand. With gloves, without gloves. I wouldn't say it's like hand melting ergos like you might see on something like that, the 8010, but it has the ergonomics that really fit what kind of knife it is. That was a stupid sentence. The ergos really match the kind of knife that this is. Very comfortable, very aggressive. I like it. Feels good. Access to the lock bar is really nice. The action is actually really nice. Let's talk about the action. So that blade is really big. And like I said, this is running on Teflon washers, but yeah, there's nothing to complain about with this action. Centering and everything, perfect. The flipper tab is amazing. I love this flipper tab. It's round and it's jimped all the way around. Really smart. You get a lot of leverage on there. It grips you back, and yeah, it really helps this knife just fly out. Very cool. This might be one of the best Teflon washer actions I've ever felt on a production knife. Really, really cool. The thumb studs you can use, these are external blade stops, which is really awesome. Or actually, yeah, external blade stops. I don't know what I was about to say. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say you can't reverse flick it, really, because it's kind of hard to get in there. But the texturing on thumb studs is really nice. This one here grabs you. You can fling it out real easily. They're pretty comfortable thumb studs, too. And because the texturing is so aggressive, like you can see it kind of sits on the scale there. I don't need to get under the thumb stud. I just need to put my thumb basically on top of the thumb stud, and it grabs me, and I can flick it. The reverse flick is a little bit harder because this stud is sunk into the scales, as you can see there. It's a little bit hard to get your finger on there. I have reverse flicked this knife before, but it's not intuitive. It's not easy, so probably not intended for reverse flicking. I do like that they give you a flathead pivot. That's nice for field maintenance. Basically anything can be used as a flathead, so you'll always have a tool to adjust your pivot. I also appreciate this secondary lock. The liner is kind of thin compared to the blade, although lockup is very solid with just the liner. And you do have this secondary locks bar that you can push forward, and it prevents you from disengaging the knife. I don't know if you can hear this. There's a little bit of crunchiness in my knife. I took this into the field with me on a couple of occasions, and it got pretty messed up. In fact, at one point I took a little tumble down a mountain, and this knife went flying out of my pocket when I hit a big ass rock, and it got pretty dirty. But the knife held up fantastically. But anyways, the way this system works, let's see if we can see in there. Might need a flashlight. All right. So you can see right, I can't push the lock bar over. See that thing that's moving? That is all the auto lock system is. It's simple, but it works. It's good. And one thing I appreciate is that this is not an auto locks knife. Now, auto locks was a CRKT variation of this locking system that would automatically deploy itself whenever you open the blade. I'm glad they didn't do that because sometimes, honestly, I didn't want to use a secondary lock. I just wanted to flick the knife open, get a cut done, and get it into my pocket. And so having the option to manually choose to use or not use that lock, I think is really, really cool. The lock itself is very easy to use. Flick the knife open, and when you go to hold it, you can push it up with your thumb, and you're locked in place. So, yeah, I think it's good. I'm not typically the biggest fan of secondary locks. I don't mind them, but this one's good. It's out of the way. It's simple, and it does its job. So, yeehaw! And you cannot engage it when the knife is closed, by the way. So it doesn't lock the knife closed. Next thing I do like they give you a 4-way mountable clip, tip up, tip down, left or right hand carry. That's really, really cool. I think that's kind of a necessity on a tactical knife, right? If you're an operator, you need to have your options to carry your knife in any way possible. We'll come back to the clip, but I do like that it is 4-way reversible. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this blade. I actually really enjoy this blade. It's decently thick, not overly thick. Honestly, let's compare it to this V Praxis here. Definitely a lot thicker than the Praxis, but it's not like obnoxiously thick. Let's compare it against, got my 80-15 here. You can see it's a little bit slimmer than the 80-15. 80-15 might look a little slimmer because it has a swedge up here, but look down here. You'll see it's a little bit slimmer. But the grind on this is actually done fairly well. You have a compound grind. And so out here towards the tip, it's a flat grind. You get a fairly pokey tip, and there is a hollow grind here. It's not a very deep hollow grind, but it is a hollow grind. And this knife cuts fine. I would not say this is a slicey knife, but it's not trying to be a slicey knife. This is a knife for cutting and piercing and poking. And it does all that fantastically. This is a very, very nice Tonto blade, kind of a drop point. You see here we've got this wedge here towards just the very tip, so you get that D-shaped cross-section out to the point, which is wonderful. You get that secondary tip, which I really like for making utility cuts. I already talked about the ergos. The ergos are fine. The plunge grind is actually done very well. Focus up camera. So you're going to get a lot of sharpenings out of this knife. It does feel like it's a knife that was made to be used. It was built to be used, and I appreciate that. Now, the AUS 8. Not my favorite steel. Not my favorite steel, and especially at this price point. You can get a bunch of different steels on M16s. You can get 4116, which honestly I might prefer the AUS 8 over 4116. But you can get 4116, AUS 8, 12C27, D2, maybe a couple of other steel, probably an 8CR. But yeah, kind of a lackluster steel, but we'll get to that later. It's the blade itself, as a blade, as the way it's designed, I actually really, really like. I think it's a very, very good blade. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to some negatives. And the first negative with this knife, the one that bothered me the most, is this pocket clip. I absolutely hate this pocket clip. It's very tight, and right here you see it sits on this hole, which makes it not the easiest thing to get in and out of a pocket. And I had different experiences. Like with jeans, this is a no-go. No, absolutely not. With any jeans that I own, this knife, no. With some other pants, like with my hiking pants, it was a little bit better. But I mentioned I took that tumble down a mountain, and the knife came out of my pocket. That really surprised me because of how tight this clip is, but I think what happened was I probably didn't have the knife in my pocket all the way because I used it, put it in my pocket, and then forgot to push it down the rest of the way in, so maybe that's why it flew out. Or this big, I think gooseneck is what Metal Complex calls these. This thing probably caught on a plant or a bush or a rock or something and ripped it out of my pocket as I was rolling. Regardless, not a fan of this pocket clip at all. Do not like it. It looks ugly too. Don't like this pocket clip at all. Luckily, this 3-hole system for the clip, this 3-hole pattern, is going to be very easy to replace. You can find a replacement clip very, very easily. So it's not a huge deal, but yeah, the clip that comes from the factory sucks. It really sucks. I do kind of wish you could reverse flick this knife. You'll see here that we only have an aluminum scale on one side, and then we have a liner on the knife for, obviously, the liner lock. This has nothing to do with use, but for me, I don't know, asymmetry like this just kind of throws me off a little bit. I don't know why, but it does. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with the utility of the knife. It's just something that I noticed. Next, this jimping here is textured really, really nicely. I wish they had brought it out the rest of the length of the blade, especially since this is where my thumb wants to be when I'm holding this knife, and it's completely off the jimping. If I have my thumb right here when I'm using this knife, and let's say I have the lock engaged, the secondary lock engaged, and I'm making my cuts, there's a chance that I can just, split that lock off. And if I want the lock on, that's not something I want to do, right? If I have the lock off, I could very easily slip it on, although I think it's easier to slip it off than it is to accidentally put it on. It does have jumping up at the top, so maybe it's meant to be there like that. I just wish they brought the jimping all the way out. I think that would have been smart. I wonder if I could front flip this knife. I don't think so, because right here is where I feel like I'd have the best leverage, but the flipper tab is right against my finger. Let's see here. Okay, well, I'm just messing around, but yeah, I do wish that jimping went quite a bit further out. Also, it would be cool if this knife did have a deeper hollow grind. Again, it's a tactical knife. It's kind of, aiming for some harder use environment type situations, but I think that could have been that could have been pretty cool. Honestly, the only other negative is the price. So these are actually sold out on Blade HQ right now, but there are very similar versions to this, including like one that has plastic scales instead of the aluminum that are still available, but it's the same size, same shape, things like that. This was going for like $64. $64 with the AUS 8. I'm not sure I can get behind that. In fact, I know I can't. That's a little bit pricey. The knife itself is really well made. It feels fantastic. And it does feel, if it had a better blade steel, I would say it was actually a steal at that $65 price point, because some of these get kind of ridiculously expensive for what they are. This one here, even if they had put 12C27 on this blade, I would have really thought it was a great deal at the $64 price point, but they didn't. So, you know, that's kind of a shame. So, final conclusions. Do I recommend this knife? I really like this knife. I'm not gonna lie, I really like this knife. I've been a lot of the stuff that Oltanto guy sent, we are going to be giving away. I'm coming up on 3,000 subscribers, so we're going to be doing a giveaway. And I have really been going back and forth on whether I'm going to put this one in the giveaway or if I'm going to keep it for my collection. Because, again, the M16 is a very classic knife. It feels like my collection needs one just because, you know, completeness, I guess. And this is a really cool knife. I really enjoyed carrying this knife, using this knife, except for the pocket clip. This is a cool knife. I'm a big fan of this knife. Now, would I have liked this knife as much if I paid $64 for it? I don't know. Probably not. And the other thing too is this kind of feels like a review of like the CRKT M16 line as a whole. Again, there are lots and lots of versions of these knives. In fact, they've come out with some recently, like some new releases for 2024 that I actually want to get on the channel and test them. I'm kind of interested in what they're all about. But a very classic line. Kind of, you know, tactical knives are normally hit or miss. You either love them or you hate them. And the M16 line is interesting because they kind of make something for everyone, which is unusual for a tactical knife. This one is definitely the best looking one, in my opinion. Growing up, I knew this guy. My cousin and I used to work for him. We worked for him a couple summers. He had an M16. He had one of the ones that had like the cross guard. It was like the desert tan color. He was an ex-military type guy, and he'd broken the tip off prying bricks or something. And I always kind of thought that was a cool knife. You know, he'd pull it out, and not gonna lie, you know, I always thought, man, it's a really cool knife. I wish I had one of those. There's just something about this design that's appealing to me, at least. And I think there's something about this design that's appealing to a lot of people because they're very popular. They're all over the place. So, can I recommend this knife? I can recommend this design 100%. I like this design a whole lot. Should you pay $65 for this? Probably not. Probably not. CRKT, if you want to release a version of this with, like, you know, upgraded steel, I think that'd be really popular. And I'm not sure what other steels they have on. In fact, let me check Blade HQ real quick. All right, so I checked, and the M16-04Z has Zytel scales. It also has AUS 8. It's about $55. Still a little bit pricey to me, honestly. If they had the aluminum and AUS 8 at $55, it would still be a little pricey, but it'd be more understandable. And then also at the $55 price point is the M16-04S, which has steel scales, and it's actually a frame lock, but it has 12C27. Again, same size, same overall design as this, but yeah, it's a frame lock with 12C27. That one actually looks pretty cool. So, you know, there are some different options out there, but yeah, I've rambled on long enough. This is a really cool knife. I enjoy this knife. I'm not typically a tactical knife guy, but this knife here, I really did enjoy carrying and using. Not sure if I can completely recommend it. It's going to get a soft recommendation from me. You know, it's going to be an up to you kind of thing. But very, very cool knife. Glad I got to take a look at it. Thank you to Old Tomtic Guy for sending it. And speaking of Old Tomtic Guy, thank you to my channel members. These are my members at the cowboy level. Thank you, members. I really, really appreciate everything you do for me at any level. It's really, really cool that you guys support the channel, and I'm very, very thankful. If you guys enjoy this video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.